the class, we left off on the book of Revelations about the fifth angel. And here was the last verse that we covered. And the fifth angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven to the earth, and to him was given the key of the bottomless pit. We talked about the bottomless pit last time. Does anybody remember what that is in this interpretation? The bottomless pit is the emotional world. The emotional world creates a bottomless pit, an endless stream of illusion that sucks people into and keeps them from going spiritually forward. So the emotional world, now we're talking about the lower feelings governed by the solar plexus. This is the bottomless pit. And we're told that a star fell from heaven unto the earth, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. The star that fell from the heaven would be like a disciple, a great teacher, an avatar, descends from the heaven to the earth. So a messenger comes from the earth to the heaven, and he has the key to the bottomless pit. So what does that mean? It means that this is a messenger that goes forward to teach, but he has mastered the lower emotions. The lower emotions has no power over him. And that's an important milestone for people to reach, because even many of the great souls that's been on the earth, famous people, people of great accomplishment, have their lower emotions have been their downfall.
Joe, couldn't that also refer to the solar angel, that the star that opens the intuition so that you gain control over your emotions?
Well, any scripture like this is subject to several interpretations, but the way it would represent the solar emotion is the one descent, or the solar angel, the one descending, the messenger would be one with his soul. So in a way that would be true, but the key to the bottomless pit, this represents would represent more a physical being that's interplaying with the emotional world here on the earth. And so the solar angel definitely would have a part to play. So, but opening the emotional world that has been suppressed and misdirected for lifetimes is a little bit like opening Pandora's box. So he opened the bottomless pit. And what does this mean? It means that a messenger that comes with a message of light, he really opens the bottomless pit of the emotional world, because when new truth or new ideas or new concepts or forward progress is put forward, it gets tremendous resistance from the emotional world. Now we can see this happening in the world today. Anyone that presents the truth, say the truth about the deep state, what the CIA is up to, they or things like this, gets tremendous resistance, and they're often attacked. And we can't look at it objectively until all the dust is settled. To look at anything objectively, we got to go back in history, and we can look at Abraham Lincoln. And Abraham Lincoln is now rated by historians, conservative and liberal, as the greatest president. They even rate him as greater than George Washington. But when he was alive, that was not the case. When he was president, overseeing the Civil War, can you guess what the New York Times said about him?
Ape.
Yeah,
He was an ape.
They said he looked like an ape and acted like an ape and was as dumb as an ape. And, and they accused him of being a tyrant and running a useless war with no end. And they had all kinds of bad things to say about him. Almost all the media was against him. He probably had more people against him than uh, anybody in recorded history where we have really accurate recordings. Matter of fact,
He responded well to criticism. You know, they called him a two-faced, and he said, "Well, if I was two-faced, would I be wearing this one?"
yeah, he often joked about his looks. You know, now we look back on him, he looks very distinguished, and he has a lot of character in his face. But he was accused of being the ugliest person in Congress that there was at the
He
time.
was pretty gangly.
Yeah, just to show you the tension of the Civil War. We had people present. A lot of people presented the idea that slavery was bad, that the blacks needed to be freed. And a senator named Sumner gave a speech on the floor of the Senate, and afterwards, this representative called Rex Prest, Representative Preston Brooks. He approached him in chambers, and he had this cane, and he whacked him with the cane a number of times and just about killed him. And he was cheered. All the Democrats just cheered him. They thought that was just great that he almost killed this senator that was for slavery, and he was never prosecuted, and he was reelected. But on the other hand, karma kind of worked its way out. He got a respiratory illness 2 years later, and he had such a hard time breathing. He actually tried to slit his throat so he could breathe, and then he died a short time after that. So they say he died a terrible death. So I think the guy had some karma coming to him for that. Now the guy injured, he was really in bad shape for about a year or two afterwards, but he eventually recovered enough to go back to Congress, but he was never the same again. But that just shows that, we have a lot of division now, but back then it was even worse than it is now. Can you imagine a senator or a representative whacking somebody, almost killing him, and one side cheering and the guy not even getting any prosecution, but just cheered and reelected for it?
Can you imagine a senator who's being overly sexual with women and inappropriate and not having anything done about it?
Well, that happens a lot.
That's what I'm saying.
All throughout our history. But this was just out in the open. Everybody saw it. He did it in plain sight. A number of witnesses saw it, and there was no dispute as to what happened here. So that's but it just shows that people were pressing forward with something good, the freedom of an entire race, and it was like entering the pit, so to speak, the bottomless pit of negative emotion, and this is what happens. And then in this situation, President Lincoln was elected, and it became so powerful that it divided the nation, and then the southern states withdrew, formed their own union, and the Civil War commenced. So it was tremendous emotion brought forward from, we could say that Lincoln represented the star that came down from heaven, and he was given the key to the bottomless pit. So Lincoln controlled his emotions and presented a step forward, but the bottomless pit was stirred up. Okay,
We're facing a similar situation now.
Yeah, yeah, we are.
So I think it's an ongoing and it's kind of an eternal principle.
From one of the rules of white magic, kind of gives some clues about this. It says, let the magician or disciple guard himself from drowning at the point where land and water meet. The midway spot, which is neither wet nor dry, must provide the standing place wherein his feet are set. When water, land, and air meet, there is a standing place where magic is to be wrought. Okay, so this is a temptation for the disciples, and it was for Lincoln. Matter of fact, a lot of historians think Lincoln was really depressed. He handled it really well if he was. He didn't let it get the best of him. But the fact that this is the danger for the magician, and Lincoln represented the magician here, is that he's in danger of being drowned by the waters. For the land point, it says, let him guard from drowning at the point where land and water meet. Earth and water. Water represents the emotion. Land represents the physical reality. And where these two meet, have a strong pull even on the great avatars of our history. And some of them have been sucked in with it. Lincoln, according to historians, was strongly affected emotionally, but he still maintained the key to the bottomless pit. So he was able to have control over the situation and lead us to the war that led to the freedom of the slaves. So it's interesting to think about there how that works. Okay, stimulating the emotions. And it says, there arose out of the smoke of the pit, the smoke of a great furnace. So stimulating the emotions then is like stimulating a furnace and releasing a whole bunch of smoke up, obscuring everything. And this is what happened with Lincoln. It was like everybody's emotions were so stimulated that it created a smoke, and people just could not see. The ones that were on the negative side, they could not see the truth. In fact, they didn't even know what freedom was. The South, even though they were, one of the things they were fighting for was the right to maintain slavery, they claimed to be fighting for freedom. And so that's the smoke of the furnace came up and it blurred their vision. They couldn't even see what freedom is, or else they would not have claimed to be fighting for freedom. Freedom to own a slave is not freedom.
Well, yeah, but the slaves are a lot more free under my control
Yeah,
because they have a life that they never would have had any other way. So I have to be a slave owner, and you should
that
praise
was
me.
their logic, and
Yeah.
it was obscured. That's for sure. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the pit. And so the sun represents the soul or higher truth, and then the air represents the mind. So they were darkened. They couldn't contact the soul, and they couldn't think straight because their emotions, what they felt about their situation, made them defend slavery and made them fight to the end for that purpose. Then verse 3 reads, and there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and to them was given power, as scorpions of the earth have power. Now, there's four symbols to keep in mind as we continue this. First of all, the symbol of heaven, when it talks about heaven, this symbolizes spirit, revelation, intuition, higher thought when it talks about heaven. Second symbol to keep in mind is air. Air symbolizes mind and thought. And third is earth and vegetation is talked about quite a bit in these verses. This symbolizes seekers who appear to be grounded in worldly wisdom. And then the fourth symbol that's important is water. The seas and deep waters of the bottomless pit symbolize emotion as well as those grounded in emotion. So water is normally symbolic of lower emotion unless the context indicates its connection to life, and then it's connected to higher feeling in that case. So water can have two different meanings. In this context, it's referring, where it's talking about the bottomless pit, it would be talking about referring to the lower emotions. So what do you suppose the locusts symbolize?
Well, they're flying insects, and they have wings that could, I don't know, clear away some of the smoke, possibly replace it with something from the higher mind.
Yeah, it symbolizes destruction and disturbance caused by the release of suppressed emotions. You know, a swarm of locusts can go just eat up a whole field of produce and destroy crops.
Like wheat.
But these released negative emotions have power like a mindless scorpion. They hurt, but they do not kill. And it says, and it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men that have not the seal of God in their foreheads. Okay, so these locusts are going forward. They're released by this negative emotion, and they have that power of the destruction of negative emotion behind them. And just as a locust normally goes after anything green to consume it, even so will a negative emotion attack any aspiring life, which is what the green represents, that gets in its way. So any life that gets in the way of what the negative emotion feels, it attacks. Now, the disciple, under the direction of the fifth angel, or the heart center, directs the emotion of the attack. So the heart center is able to transmute the lower emotion into the higher. So it has no effect over it. And that's the great part about the servant having the key to the bottomless pit, is when he's attacked by these locusts or anything else, he is able to resist it and transmute it. Negative emotion has no power on those who focus on the light of the head, but the stings like a scorpion on those who do not see the light. So, the funny part about emotion that says they sting like a scorpion. And now, but the scorpion doesn't kill. The emotion itself hurts, but it doesn't kill. And that's why the emotions, the sting of the emotions is compared to a scorpion, because it hurts, but it does not kill. And that's a really great description of how emotions work for us. And to them it was given that they should not kill men, but they should be tormented 5 months and their torment was the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man. So 5 months, in other words, that's symbolic of a substantial length of time. If you're being tormented for 5 months, that seems like a pretty substantial amount of time. And when you are attacked by a negative emotion, let's say you go through a divorce or something like that, usually it takes about 5 months to adjust to the sting of the emotional hurt over a betrayal or a friend that becomes angry at you or somebody that hurt your feelings. It takes about 5 months to adjust and get back to your normal feelings. So the sting of powerful negative emotions is like the sting of a scorpion. It lingers for about 5 months before you kind of adjust to it, and sometimes you never adjust completely. But so the emotions are like the sting of a scorpion. So verse 6 then says, in those days men shall seek death and shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them. So him that does not seek God, and the seal of God in the forehead are people that have opened up their head center to a degree, and they are seeking the inner light. And these are immune from the attacks of negativity. And but those who are attacked, it says it gives us about they will actually desire to die. Now you look at people that are suffering with negative emotional feelings today. There's a lot of young people now that are so upset because the media has put the fear of God in them about global warming, about different candidates that are out there. And there's a lot of depression among young people, and a big increase in suicide of young people. And so the negative emotions cause people to desire to die. Now, there's a guy that I watched a YouTube channel of this guy. He had an interesting interpretation on this. His name is Israel Anderson. And what he maintains is eventually he come up with an interesting interpretation on this. I'll give you. He says we're reaching the point where we're going to create technology that's going to extend life. He says, but it's going to backfire on people. And the fact that then when they get sick, they won't be able to die, and they'll get so sick that they will wish to die, but they won't be able to because of this technology keeps them alive. But this is already fulfilled to a degree in the fact that our technology that we have keeps people alive much longer than used to. Used to be when grandma got sick, she they just let her die, and she suffered a little while and then she died. Now grandma gets sick. They keep her alive through exceptional means that often cost about $1 million or so. And so grandma has to suffer maybe 6 months to a year, undergo tremendous suffering. And while she's suffering, she probably wishes she could die, but she can't die because they're keeping her alive by artificial means. So in a way, this prophecy is literally come to pass in our time. But it also has other meanings. Like, to him that does not seek God with the mind, or the seal in the forehead, that there will come like devastation through negative emotions and guilt, that he will desire to die rather than suffer the guilt and the negative emotions. And so just if you've ever Think of the time in your life maybe you felt guiltiest about something. Maybe when you were in a Orthodox church, they had power to do that to the people. It can produce a very powerful effect on people. So these negative emotions can put people in a state where they desire to die, but they don't have the courage to go kill themselves. But I do find it interesting that we've reached the technology where we keep people alive that don't want to stay alive. They don't want to suffer anymore. They wish they could die, but we still keep them going. And it hurts them and drains the pocketbook of the kids. But the kids are often at fault. Kids want to keep mom or grandma alive, even though she's suffering tremendously. Uh, and that's almost like torture. You know, we don't do that to animal. If an animal is really suffering, we just put it out of its misery. Now, with humans, we have to use good judgment, but it's merciful in many ways just to let nature take care of people's passing, and it will not be nearly as painful as if they go through
JJ,
$1 million
when
of
you say
medical treatments.
JJ, when you say we don't do that to animal, they do it now because of materialistic advantage. I hear people who have sick animals, they get the scans, they have all kind of things that cost $5,000 to save a cat for 6 months.
Well, you're right. You're right. I do know people that have done that.
So I think for
Yeah,
the
when I was a kid,
human,
if you're something happened to your dog, he broke some bones. They just put him to sleep, but not anymore.
oh,
You're right. They spend thousands of dollars on their animals these days.
I have friends who spend 6,000 for a cat that lasts, 6 months or a year because he had cancer. So well, we have to do a scan, we have to do an MRI, we have to have an X-ray, and all of that is just postponing and materialistic for the benefit of the veterinarian. And I think for the human, it's a little bit the same. It is beneficial to the hospital, to the doctor, to the specialist, and eventually you have to go on to the other side.
Yeah, I bet that cat wishes he could have gone on earlier.
And less pain.
Yeah, poor little thing. Okay, we'll move on to the next verses. I'll read them. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle, and their heads were on their heads, as it were, crowns of gold, and their faces were as the faces of men, and they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were the teeth of lions, and they had breastplates, as it were, breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle. And they had tails like unto scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. And their power was to hurt men 5 months. And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue is Apollyon. One woe is past, 3 come, and there come 2 woes more hereafter. So that's a lot of meat in there. So let's examine this. Just have a few minutes here. So we'll just ask, go over the first part here. It says the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses prepared unto battle. And on their heads were as it were crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. So if a locust is magnified, it kind of looks like a horse prepared for battle. And what's interesting about this, the way it describes it, a lot of people think it's describing modern warfare too.
Helicopters.
Yeah. And when it talks about they had long the hair as the hair of women in the 60s when the hippies become popular, a lot of people thought the hippies bringing in long hair was a fulfillment of this prediction. But you know, right now people have all kinds of hair uh, today, so that doesn't really fit so much today. But I remember back in the 60s, people really thought this was that long hair of the hippies was a sign of that the end was near when you think of it. So anyway, locust looks something like a horse prepared for battle. So there's many correspondence here that can be made toward modern days. But those who are looking for exact interpretation are going to miss the mark. As we go through this, we'll see that certain times in our history, it looked like certain things, certain parts of the book of Revelation was literally coming true. And then after a little bit of more few years passed, well, I guess that wasn't quite it. But we'll find as we go along in a timeline that certain things in the book of Revelation do have a literal manifestation, but the wholeness of it is around the path of the disciple rather than any literal interpretation or literal fulfillment line by line. Just isn't going to happen. So the book itself represents the unveiling of the Christ, of the disciple, and Paul spoke about this when he said these words. He said, in whom God would make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory. And that kind of sums up the purpose of the book of Revelation, is to manifest the Christ in us with the hope of glory. So what does it mean then when it says the locusts were like horses prepared to battle? The horse here represents intelligence applied with passion. Okay. So they will use their intelligence to attack those who stimulated their negative emotions. So these negative emotions release these locusts, which are attacks against the forces of light that are trying to move men forward. So they're like locusts prepared for battle, and they will do everything they can to attack. And when they attack, their only power is to hurt men for 5 months, but not kill them. So with negative emotion alone, you can't really kill a person with emotion, but you can hurt their feelings, or you can stimulate them incorrectly. You can depress them, but you can't kill them. You can make them want to die, but you cannot kill them with emotion alone. It has to be followed up with actual action. Now, this happened to Jesus, and the fact that he stirred up a hornet's nest too, and they came after him like locusts to battle to try to take him down, but they couldn't. They did everything they could to upset him, and they were unable to. And even when they attacked him and put him on the cross, put a thorn of crowns on his head, they spit on him, they nailed him to the cross, and yet they were unable to affect him in a negative way emotionally. He was still in the state of peace that he could say, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That made him an angel that had the key to the bottomless pit. He had control over these others that were in the bottomless pit. They were in the bottomless pit, but he had the key to it. Okay, that's about all we have time for today. Any comments or questions before we sign off on this?
So the locust looks like a horse. That represents intelligence and motion, you think?
Yeah, the horses, the symbol of the horse, it says they were kind of like horses prepared to battle, and a horse represents passion and intelligence. And so they use the negative emotions, emotional people, they aren't dumb. They do use intelligence, but they use it in a destructive way. And this is what the locusts do. The locusts are not stupid, but they, and you watch these discussions on TV where you have political debates. You see one side, maybe one side makes sense and the other side doesn't. You pick on the guy that doesn't make any sense. He often still is able to argue with a high degree of intelligence. You'll notice, and he can make something that is completely wrong sound really good. Have you ever seen people like that?
Gavin Newsom?
Yeah. So some slick politicians are able to do this. They're able to take something that's really negative and make it sound positive, and take something that is very false and make it sound true, because they have passion and intelligence, but it's misdirected, and
That sounds exactly like Mr. Putin. And his army are like locusts because they move into another land and they destroy everything.
yeah. I think Putin has a lot of power at home. I don't know if he's that eloquent though when you listen to him, but he's definitely got a lot of power over the authorities in his home realm there.
Obviously,
When I
we
was
don't,
ex-
we
Can I
don't know
say,
what he's saying.
Let's say,
excuse me, as Ed was talking.
Well, actually, we don't know how eloquent Mr. Putin is because he speaks in Russian, but 20% of these people seem to think he's eloquent.
yeah, somebody that we know was eloquent for the dark side was Hitler. When you listen to him speak, even though you can't understand him, you can tell that he was a tremendously convincing guy.
he had passion.
Yeah, tremendous passion. So he was kind of a great example of the dark side, whereas Lincoln was a great example of the light side. But
So
that we could all agree on.
I don't know if I've understood the fifth angel got the key to the bottomless pits. Is this angel the Christ, you mean? Because he
Well,
actually
he represents any messenger of light that comes from heaven to the earth. The star fell from heaven to the earth. So the star represents a messenger of light, comes to the earth, and he's the fifth. That represents the heart center. So the heart center represents the higher feelings. And then the lower feelings, the solar plexus, is the bottomless pit, so to speak. So the heart center has the key to the bottomless pit. When we shift our attention from the solar plexus to the heart center, then we have the key to the bottomless pit. And this also applies with our own life. It gives us the key to our lower emotions. Until our attention is shifted up to the heart center, we're governed by our lower emotions, and we are in the bottomless pit. And our decisions made from our lower emotions take us nowhere, take us to an endless journey to nowhere, which is symbolic of the bottomless pit. But when our attention is risen up to the higher feelings of the heart, which is spiritual love.
Sorry.
And then what that does, it's the key to the bottomless pit. So it controls the lower emotions.
So
So
that's
when the lower emotions are under control, then they can be directed in a positive way. But when they're not under control, they're always lead you into destructive avenues
so this.
where you're
I,
not fulfilled.
sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. This makes me think of when I was in Patmos, where the Revelation was written in that cave by John the Revelator. That I was told that this island was holy because the Christ has actually trod that soil.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was not only getting the information, they actually meant that Christ was there with John and giving him the revelation. Yeah.
Did you actually visit the Isle of Patmos? Twice? Oh, okay. Good.
Hey, JJ,
Yeah,
what's
right.
the difference between the bottomless pit and the dweller at the gate?
I mean the dweller of the dweller on the threshold?
Yeah.
Well, the dweller is an actual kind of life force that's separate from your emotional body. It affects your emotions, but it's two different things. And that's really not covered much in the book of Revelation itself, but in the Tibetan's writings, he talks quite a bit about the dweller on the threshold. But the dweller on the threshold is a life force that does everything it can to keep you from moving forward. So it uses these lower emotions, whereas the bottomless pit is the lower emotions itself. You know, it's like jealousy is not the dweller on the threshold, but the dweller on the threshold will use jealousy to control you, for instance, or hatred or whatever. Okay, let's go into the meditation. We sound the Om. 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 We thank you, Father, that you have revealed to us your protective universal light, that within this light is complete protection from all destructive forces, that the Holy Spirit of your presence permeates us in this light, and wherever we will, the light to descend. See us all in a circle. And we see lights descending from above us, a number of them. One of them comes next to you, and others land next to others, making 24 entities in the circle. You're holding the hand of one that descended with your right hand. You feel this entity's vibration, his or her love, his or her light, this entity's connection to our source. We thank you, Father, that you fill us with your protective fires of love, that within this love is complete protection from all destructive thoughts and feelings, that the consciousness of Christ is lifted up in us in this love, and wherever we will, the love to be inflamed. Put your attention on the very core of your being. Think of that phrase, where is my core? Where is the center of me? This is where your heart is. This is where love is born. Feel at the very center as if a candle has been lit. A warm fire grows, fills your whole being with the love of God. A love that spreads throughout the circle. Each person in the circle has the similar experience and feeling, making us as if we are one life. We thank you, Father, that you're in us and we are in you, that through us your will is sent forth on wings of power, that your purpose is accomplished on earth as it is in heaven, that through us your light and love and power is manifest to all the sons and daughters of mankind. Feel the hand of the person on your right and on your left, and on your right is a master, a very advanced being, come to assist us. And on your left is one of the members of our group. And feel the difference in vibration. But then feel the vibration of the person on your right flow through you to the person on your left, charged as if they're being spiritually charged with the same charge as held by the master. Feel the transfer of energy from the master on the right to the member of the group on the left. Feel the flow of energy. The reason he is a master is because of the power to give, to let the energy flow, for the energy is unlimited. When a master gives, nothing is lost. There's only gain. The energy flows. Feel it flowing through you until the person on your left feels like the person on your right. And because you let the energy flow through you, you are also charged. Feel yourself, how similar you are now to the person on your right and to the person on your left. At our cores, we are all equal. We are all equal because we have all the powers of God, because he shares everything with us. We are equal because we all have everything. We just need to overcome the deception that we don't have everything. Let us lift the illusion. We see above us a point of light, and we see the Christ descending, and he's just over our heads, and he reaches forth his hand, and he makes a statement. Behold, I rent the veil of illusion. Let the illusion depart, and let the true reality be seen and felt. He waves his hand, and it's if the darkness is departing like a curtain, being replaced with light. Light all around us, brighter than the sun. And in the light, we see more light. Endless light. Endless love. Within the light, we see a globe representing the world, the earth, the planet. We see the earth lighted with the glory of God. We look upon the planet and we can see anything in it. If you see a friend, a loved one in need, look upon him and you can see him or her and send light and love and power to heal. And the Master speaks one more time. Let light and love and power to heal go with you, my friends. Remember, I am with you always, and you are with me. Amen. Okay, my friends, good group and appreciate everybody being here. Any comments before we sign off? Well, we will see you next Sunday around 10 o'clock. I'll be in well.
Thank you.
Thank you, JJ.
Good class, Brother Joe.
Thank you, Curtis. Okay, we'll see you next week.